Yes, how are we doing? I'm here in the UK going for a walk. One of my favourite things to do when I'm here is to get in nature because, as for those who don't know, I'm based in Dubai. Been in Dubai for 11 years. I love Dubai, absolutely love it, but one thing it lacks is a little bit of nature. So when I'm back, one thing I want to make sure I'm doing is getting plenty of walks, plenty of runs in nature and getting amongst it. It feels good for the soul. So as I'm going on this little walk today, I just want to give a quick update on where I'm at. From a fitness perspective, for those who aren't following me on Instagram, get over there, Paul Bradley Coaching. You will have seen in the last few weeks, I'm back on a bit of a fitness journey myself. This year has been a bit stop for me. Had a few setbacks injuries wise, a few illnesses that I've overcome. As a result of that, I've put a bit too much body fat on. It's nothing that's too detrimental, but it's not ideal. I think what's really key in life as a man is to have standards for yourself and set standards. And you know deep down when you're slipping below those standards. For some of you right now, it might be a case of you haven't worked out for a long time, or you're drinking too much, eating too much shit, not spending enough quality time with your family. There'll be a part of you internally which knows deep down that you're not performing at that level you should do because you've let your standards drop. So having standards and getting clear on what those are is really, really important. I think it's good to have a baseline level that you try not to go below. So for some of you who are, well, in my world, should I say, for me, it's like, okay, baseline level is going to be at least 3 to 4 workouts a week. I want to make sure that I'm doing X amount of hours work. I want to make sure that I'm spending at least X amount of time with the family, etc. Just having basic standards that you try and live up to. When it comes to booze and alcohol, trying to limit that as best as possible and earning the right a bit when you do decide to drink or have a good time. I think just baseline levels is just a simple way to view things. And if you dip way below them, you're going to know about it. You're going to know about it because you're going to get feedback. You're going to understand that, okay, feeling a bit tired, feeling a bit grouchy, snapping at the missus, not performing the way you want at work, maybe making too many silly mistakes, errors, decision making is not where it needs to be. So again, for me personally, this year has been a year where the standards have dropped a little bit from a fitness perspective, which I guess is a little bit ironic because this is what I do, but it is what it is, right? I mean, I could lie to you and pretend that the standards haven't dropped and I've been smashing it and dominating it, which a lot of people do online these days. Everyone's sort of living in a bit of a strange bubble where their perception doesn't really match up to the reality they're creating. So again, anyway, what I want to share with you is my learnings and insights over the last 5 weeks from recommitting to my fitness. Now, again, I will say this, over the last sort of 6 months, I've still been training. I've still been doing a lot of very positive things from a health and fitness perspective, but I've fallen below my standards. So if you're someone right now who's fallen below your standards, maybe you're training inconsistently, maybe you haven't trained for a long time, or you've lost your edge a little bit going through the motions, what I'm going to share with you might be able to give you a bit of a spark, a bit of motivation, a bit of inspiration, or just some insights in terms of how you can get yourself back on track. So the last 5 weeks for me, what I've decided to do is completely recommit to the basics. And I think this is where a lot of people go wrong. A lot of times we already know what to do, but for whatever reason, we tend to drift on these principles and, like I say, drop our standards a little bit. So what I mean by the basics is very simple. If you're someone who's looking to get leaner, drop body fat, improve your energy, boost motivation, then you understand that there has to be a certain amount of output. Outputs are going to be your training, your workouts. So whether that's, which it should be, your base should be weights, building strength, building lean muscle mass. For a lot of you on my channel, one of your concerns or fears may be longevity, being around long term, to see your kids grow up, being around long term to be a significant part of their life. So we want to make sure that the work we're doing in the gym is not just benefit us in the short term, but it's benefit us in the long term. So what do I mean by that? Well, there's been good studies to show that the more lean muscle mass you have, the longer you're going to live. The more you can improve your VO2 max, which is your body's ability to utilize oxygen, the longer you're going to live. So the great thing about the workouts we can do is we can do weight training, which benefits us short term and long term. And then we can do the right level of cardio, which benefits us short term and long term. So the weight training is going to benefit short term because we're going to feel strong. We're going to, recorrect our postures. We're going to get that testosterone boost when we're lifting weights. We're going to get that pump feeling, which feels amazing, and we're going to get stronger over time. Cardio, of course, is great because it, with a good cardio session, you feel revitalized, you feel energized. You can lose body fat, you can get leaner, and of course, making sure our heart health and the respiratory system's taking care of itself. That's in the short term. Long term, it's been proven that, again, the right level of zone 2, which is low intensity cardio, and the right level of high intensity cardio is going to massively help us combat illnesses and, again, live longer. So from a basics perspective, what does this mean? Well, what it means is do that. Do your weight training and do your cardio. If you're someone who's starting off, give yourself 3 hours a week. A lot of times when we break it down into the actual hours it takes on a weekly basis, it makes you realize, actually, shit, I've got 3 hours a week. If I say do 3 sessions a week, okay, that makes sense. But 3 hours, okay, fucking, I've got 3 hours. Everyone's got 3 hours. So I want you to just focus on the basics, like I've been doing. For me personally, I just broke down my schedule and go, right, well, I'm going to focus on doing at least 5 sessions a week, and I've got about 75 minutes for those sessions. So for you guys, figure out realistically how long you're going to have for each session. It could be a case of breaking down those 3 hours into 3 sessions, 4 sessions, whatever works best for you. And this is just a baseline. If you've got more time and you want to commit to it more, do more. Okay, I think for anyone who's starting out, doing up to 5 days a week is fine. One of the best things you can possibly do as well is start by doing 3, then 4, then 5, and building it up. That's a good way because that makes the barrier to entry a little bit easier, and then you're not going to set you up to fail. Because a lot of people, what happens is they embark on a fitness journey and they get all excited. They think, right, okay, I'm gonna fucking go for this, balls deep, and they start going crazy, doing 2-hour sessions, doubling up, doing 7 days a week. Right, I'm not gonna eat any shit food, I'm gonna be 100% focused. And the intention's right, but then what happens over the course of like a few weeks is they get burnt out, they get injured, they end up binging because what they're doing wasn't sustainable. So you're better off starting, moderately, and building your way up. So these are just the basic principles to adapt. When it comes to nutrition, one thing that I've realized is, without doubt, for me and for, I've coached up to 2,000 clients now. The biggest thing that will hold us back really is impulse control, okay? Our impulses get the best of us and we end up either grabbing that pack of crisps or grabbing that chocolate bar, kids' leftovers, booze, wherever it's gonna be. So if we can get a handle on the impulses, if we can be aware and set up our environment accordingly to set us up to win, it makes a big, big difference. So what do I mean by that? Well, the first thing you've got to understand is that you don't need to be perfect. Again, if you're someone like me who's right, okay, I need to get back in the game, I need to sharpen things up a little bit nutritionally, then just by eliminating some of the shit food you're eating, so let's say over the course of a day you have 3-4 meals, let's say 3 meals a day, over the course of the week, 7 days a week, that's 21 meals, let's say, for example. Out of those 21 meals, how many of those meals are good quality, home cooked, healthy meals? And how many of those are going to be meals that you're grabbing on the fly? Takeaways, lunches out, etc. The reason why that's important is you can't really control the ingredients and the calories when you're grabbing things on the fly. You can have more control when you're cooking at home, for example. So that's a good metric to start with. So for example, if you've got the ratio where 70% of the time you're having food that is on the fly, grabbing stuff from restaurants, takeaways, etc., and then 30% is home cooked, for the next week to 2 weeks, just focus on getting that split more like 60-40 in favor of home cooked over takeaways or food out. Right? Let's just start there. Just by making that subtle shift, that will make a big difference in terms of controlling the calories, but more importantly, the mentality that, you know what, I'm going to make a change here, and I'm going to be organised, I'm going to be prepared, and I'm willing to do a bit more work in the kitchen or having the conversation with the wife, whoever it needs to be, so that you're a bit more organised and structured, okay? If you go ahead and you're eating a lot of shit, just by reducing that shit food you're eating by 50% in the first week to 2 weeks, will make a big difference in terms of seeing some movement on the scale potentially and body fat coming off without having to do too much exercise. This is what I mean by just handling the basics, but doing things in a way which is sustainable. If I said to you, right, okay, for next month, you can't eat any carbs, You can't fucking have any, I can't have any alcohol. You can't have X, Y, and Z. You're going to be very limited and restricted. Some of you might like that. Some of you, a lot of you, may like the idea of it, but the reality is different. So for me personally, having coached, like I say, nearly 2,000 men, and myself, knowing myself inside out, obviously, I would say you're better off starting moderately, not restricting yourself too much, getting started and making the barrier to entry as simple and straightforward as possible. Okay, and that's sort of what I've been doing myself. So what I've been doing is realizing, okay, probably the weekends are where I'm having what I call the little gremlins. So you get that, how do I say, a bit of lack of discipline around the weekends. And you've got to factor in things like social occasions, right? So we've got to be real about that. We've got social things happening, a lot of stuff going on, birthdays and weddings and christenings and whatnot. So that comes into factor. But generally speaking, for most people, myself included, is if we can use the weekends to take us closer to our fitness goals, not further away, that's going to have a huge impact in terms of overall progress, because most people will do things quite well during the week, get to the weekend, El Vino does flow, and you can really do some damage in the weekend rock star mindset. So being aware of when you're slipping up, being aware of when you're at your, how do I say, weak point, where you're most vulnerable to consuming too much calories, too much shit, is key. For me, weekends, 7:30 p.m. usually, because what happens after 7:30 p.m, you have dinner, a little bit more tired as the night goes on. As your energy drops, your cravings increase. So if you can manage those moments and then manage the weekends over a month, 2 months, that makes a big difference. And the reason I'm able to sort of give this information is because I'm becoming aware of my sabotage moment. So again, really interesting point here to pass on. If you're trying to get back into the game or focus on that, just be aware of what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And when you seem to, I don't want to use the word fuck up because that's a bit harsh, but I think the times when you maybe drop the ball a little bit, be aware, get some patterns, understand it, and then you can start putting in you can start putting in systems and ways of combating that. So, for example, for me, what I will do is, okay, let's say that I'm tending to eat a bit more shit food of a night time after 7:30 p.m. Okay, what am I eating? Well, I tend to eat, let's say, bread and butter. I tend to eat maybe some chocolate, etc. So what I'll do instead is I'll find healthier alternatives to that. I will use low calorie protein ice cream. I will have a hot chocolate drink. I'll have my go-to, which is Greek yogurt with blueberries. Fantastic. Get it done. That's such a better alternative. Weekends come, and what I might do is I might restrict my calories. If I know that I'm going out of an evening time, I might eat less calories in the day to give myself more calories to play with of an evening time. So if I know I'm going to go out, have a couple of beers and go out with the wife, have a steak and chips or whatnot, or I've got a social occasion, let me eat less during the day, therefore allowing more calories of an evening time. Very simple way of looking at it, but it works really well. I think a lot of this comes down to, you guys, and this is probably another tip, is setting intentions. I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here. There's no real pattern, but what I'm saying, hopefully, if you want to take down some notes, you'll get some good insights here. But yeah, setting intentions is huge, and being aware, setting intentions each day, each morning, saying, right, okay, what I want this day to look like, what am I going to do, how am I going to execute it, when things are potentially going to slip up, how am I going to handle that. Really good way of looking at it, because then when you're setting intentions, you're being intentional, you've got a much more better chance of staying on track and sticking to your focus points, sticking to your goals. And that's what I've noticed myself. And yeah, feeling leaner, albeit just got to the UK for last week, and it's always takes a bit of time to integrate in terms of getting your body clock back on track, not staying in your house, so you've got to adjust to a different environment. But generally speaking, pretty good. And yeah, it's a case of just keeping cracking on. So a quick update from me really, guys, with some insights that you can definitely take away and implement yourself. I think that the key to recap is sticking to the basics, okay? Understanding yourself, so what are your baselines, as I mentioned, what are you willing to commit to. You're better off starting moderately than building up, making sure you're getting your weight training done, your cardio in, making sure that you're aware of when you're self-sabotaging or when you potentially could take steps backwards or move away from your goals. I think the key thing really is that self-awareness piece around you, because everyone's different. I think we can all agree that the weekends is probably the common denominator that we're going to have challenges with. Kids, social occasions, etc. And generally, like I say, during the week is when people can keep things a bit more tighter. So being aware of your weaknesses, being intentional, setting yourself up to win from the get-go, these are all really, really important things to implement. Being intentional is right up there too. Let me know what you've taken away from this. Like I say, just a quick update today on where I'm at. Over the next 6 weeks, I'll be back in the UK. I'm going to do a combination of getting more runs in because the weather's fantastic, and like I say, being in nature is amazing. Keeping the weight training as the baseline of what we do, and trying to get the balance right as always between having fun, enjoying time with the family, and not taking steps further away from your fitness goals. I'm not expecting over this next 5 to 6 weeks to see radical changes and progress because of the nature of being back here almost like on a semi-vacation, doing some work at the same time. So I guess another last point is being and setting realistic expectations. If you've got a lot of travel going on, or you've got vacations coming up, or you're outside your normal environment, then give yourself a little bit of leeway. Understand it may not be perfect, but the key thing is to keep building that momentum, keep building consistency. And this game of fitness is just one big refinement process. I've been doing it now consistently for nearly 20 years, and I'm still learning. A lot of times it's about relearning things you already know, but it's a fantastic journey to go on. And if you look at it as an exploration, as a journey, and you don't put any deadlines in place which aren't realistic, as in, well, I've got to lose 5 kg by next week, or I've got to be in, I've got to lose 20 kg by in the next 2 months. Set yourself up to win by setting realistic expectations. Understand that it's all a process. Keep showing up, keep compounding those wins. And of course, if you've got any questions for me about your own fitness journey, got any questions for me about anything related to health and fitness mindset, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'll come back to you as soon as I can.